Hello everyone, it's the Bitcoin SV Bulldozer. So, this video is going to be titled BTC, What Happens If It Dies? So, the idea was prompted by something that came up in not the last video that I produced, but the one before that, where I was ad-libbing about how the BTC Ponzi is only going to get worse. I've been stewing on this idea for the last several days, and I think I might be onto something with that. I tend to think very visually, and what I'm going to describe here is kind of coming from that visual sense of the parasite, the tumour that BTC is in the overall financial system. Now, there's this idea that there are synchronicities in people's thinking. You know how scientists or mathematicians or thinkers come up with the same idea at the same time and they're not even in contact. For example, Newton and Leibniz both coming up with calculus independently. So I was listening to one of the Twitter spaces with Daniel Kraywitz, Kurt Jr. and another guy. And I don't know who said this, but basically I had the same vision, but it wasn't about Tether. And the point was, Tether may be the thing that brings the whole fiat monetary system down, or something along those lines, right? But for me, I was seeing Bitcoin as the thing, as the tumour in the side of the whole monetary system, a cancer, if you like. And they're not exactly mutually exclusive. I think basically BTC and Tether have a symbiotic relationship, and the whole Ponzi scheme is based on both. It's almost as if BTC is Tether and Tether is BTC. With the move of governments to become invested in crypto, and you see superannuation funds and the like starting to look into that as an investment option, and then also the ETFs, I think Tether's role may not be as necessary for the whole Ponzi scheme, because now they can actually just go to government and print up fiat currency in order to feed the beast which BTC is becoming. So at the moment, BTC is one massive scam. And when I presented this idea on my channel, I hadn't heard anybody else come up with this idea, that BTC is one of the biggest scams in history. Now, I'm yet to produce my video on the biggest scams in history, and you might be surprised, but I wonder if BTC would make the top 10. And it's very ironic that the supposed ideals of Bitcoin, what we have with BTC, is completely diametrically opposed to that. It's the complete opposite. It's the cancer in the monetary system now. And the way I see it is, I've talked about this, that what BTC feeds on is liquidity of the masses. The mums and pups, the baby boomers with their superannuation funds or their IRAs. And what it is now, you don't even necessarily need that. You just go to the governments, get them to print up fiat currency via the banks and pump the price that way. And then when it's incumbent upon them, the bankers and the parasites that have created the fiat monetary system can do a massive dump. And they win both ways because they can short sell the whole market. So they're winning on the way up and on the way down. This bull market that's going to come, I think, in 2025 could be epic in terms of BTC. I conservatively said that I think that BTC could go up to 300k, but I wouldn't be surprised if it were a lot higher. They're going to absolutely fleece the public, and it would be an epic disaster, I think. I don't know if it'll necessarily be the downfall of BTC. I still think we've got not this bull run, but the next one to see BTC go up to $1 million. But eventually I think they're going to take it there. And they just get their Tether printing machines, now their fiat currency printing machines, and pump the living daylights out of it. And your everyday person, you know, you might get the odd person here and there that actually becomes wealthy, relatively speaking, from it and has some windfall. But for the most part, I think that the people are just going to get fleeced. And it's an underhand kind of fleecing that happens. So I would typically describe the fiat currency system in the following way, that they print money out of thin air, they lend it to the population and charge interest on it. But actually, it's not like that at all. It's far worse than that, because what they do is they print money and they use it for their own purposes, and then we owe that money plus interest. So it's a really evil kind of theft that they're performing with the fiat currency system. They're fleecing the population that way by printing the money, pumping Bitcoin with that money, it probably ends up in the hands of whoever is behind Tether or whoever's behind, MasterCard and the controllers of the whole Ponzi scheme, which BTC is. But it ends up in their midst, both up and down, with the long going along and then shorting the market. Get ready for it to get worse and worse, and the cancer is already bad as it is. It could get very, very bad, right? And this is the point of the video, is to just put that into perspective. We've got a tumour in the monetary system, which is now BTC. We could say BTC/Tether. I like to say BTC because people think that BTC is good. I'll come back to this thought, but I love a good conspiracy, right? I love to hear about good conspiracy theories and the like. But if I listen to conspiracy theorists, and there are a lot of people out there, podcasts that I listen to, the people behind the podcasts, I really respect them. But they have absolutely no idea about Bitcoin. They have no idea how corrupt the system is, and they have no idea about the forks. They have no idea how BTC is completely corrupted. At best, they know about Steve Patterson's book and him exposing a half-truth about Bitcoin. It's really interesting. I listen to these podcasters for years and they talk about Bitcoin. They think they know it. In the background, I'm like, you have absolutely no idea. You don't know what you're talking about. You don't know shit about Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies. And then this year, they come across Steve Patterson's book and they think they know it all. Suddenly, I'm an expert on the conspiracy behind Bitcoin and the cryptocurrencies. They still don't know anything. They have no fucking idea. Until they have landed upon Bitcoin SV, they have no idea the level of corruption that is in the whole space. So the image that I have of BTC is this parasite, this tumour that is in the side of the monetary system, and it's getting worse. And I think that eventually it's going to get worse and worse. There's no stopping it in a way. And the person, I can't remember who it was, that talked about Tether and that being a reflection of the overall monetary system. Yeah, they're right. I think that it is almost like a natural outgrowth of the monetary system that this tumour has arisen. So they say that the parasite, if it keeps feeding and keeps expanding, eventually it kills the host. Well, the host is the monetary/financial system, and it's feeding off that in a really bad way. And with government coming in, it's just found another food source, right? It's latched onto the liver or the kidney or something. If the monetary system is a body, it's latched onto some important organ, and now it's feeding off that. It's going to get worse, people. We think it's bad, and we, in BSV, we've known for years how bad it is, how toxic it is. This government supporting it, this is just so bad, right? And people say, well, the topic of this video is what happens if BTC comes crashing down. Now, I'm going to put a caveat in here by saying that I have a really hard time seeing BTC ever come crashing down. It might be in the form of Tether coming crashing down, and then they have their perfect scapegoat because they can say it wasn't BTC's fault, right? Whereas they've got this symbiotic relationship and they feed off one another. Or it could be, the case of what they did in 2008, the banks are too big to fail, BTC is too big to fail. For all intents and purposes, if they've got their fiat monetary system behind it, they could just keep printing money upon money to support the beast, right? So I'm not necessarily predicting that BTC will ever fail, but can you imagine in 15, 20 years' time if BTC is still around and it's just this ugly mess, right? It's almost designed now to bring down the system. Maybe it is the thing that is actually needed to bring down the system. But if it actually does happen, let's say it has a couple more cycles of this boom and bust. If it ever does come crashing down, it is going to create absolute havoc. And if it's obvious that BTC was the result, people are going to be left scratching their heads. What was this? What was this all about? BTC is useless. What were we investing in? It's going to be epic because, in, say, the dot-com bubble, it wasn't just one single thing. I mean, possibly you could say that if BTC comes down, the whole crypto market comes crashing down. But with the dot-com bubble, they couldn't point to one thing and say it was that. Whereas with BTC coming crashing down, it's obviously the big one. It's the beast. And if that comes crashing down, the whole thing comes crashing down. And it will just create absolute chaos. And I'm thinking now, when most people know what BTC is, it's, a household name now. It's associated with all sorts of things. A real cult has developed around this. They have played the narrative to perfection. It's associated with getting rich. It's associated with freedom and liberty. It's associated with being out of the control of government, decentralised. And unless you start digging, you don't know the level of corruption that is there. It's almost got a tick of approval in the eyes of the population. It's got a godly essence. It's a cult, really, and you can't criticise it in any way. You can't paint a bad picture of it, whereas the complete opposite is the truth. It is a cancer in the system, it is corrupt, and it is feeding off the host, which is the financial/monetary system. It's the thing that will possibly bring down the whole system, but not in the near future, I don't think. I think we're going to be living with this for a long time. I can't even necessarily see it dying. It might just vanish one day. Or if they actually do decide at some point, it might be the catalyst for them to usher in their technocratic monetary system. It might be the catalyst. If that comes down, that will be their excuse. We need to use our system. So I think that's all I've got to say on the matter. Terrible. This is just disgusting. BTC is the complete opposite of what it was intended to be. So maybe the only shining light in the whole space, and I've got some new perspectives on BSV now. I'll share them in another video, but it might be the only shining light in the whole thing. So that's it. Any tips to $BSV Bulldozer? That's my Handcash address. Thank you very much to the last person who sent me a generous contribution of BSV. Ciao.